So sort of similar to last week, the Deb Erickson content. Basically, why don't you draw? Do you guys have pen and a paper? No? Okay. You can just visualize this then. Maybe I'll just use a pen and a paper. So the practice is to draw a circle, or actually draw a square, okay? And this is like your comfort zone, okay? And any goal that you have that's within that comfort zone will be very sort of easy to match. Like for me, it would be like, okay, I'm gonna like meditate for an extra 10 minutes a day. Like that's not such a far stretch for me. Or, you know, I'm gonna be really like cut out sugar or something. Those aren't like big things for me. But if my goal is like, I'm gonna plan this big like activist fundraiser, that might be a little bit more out. Or if I'm gonna reach platinum, which is like more money than I could fathom, and a bigger amount of community and leadership than I can fathom, it's like quite a big stretch out. And because our brains create repetition compulsion, right? Which is we repeat patterns because that makes our brain have to use less energy. The more we can do things on automatic pilot, the more that our brain function that way. It's like our caveman brain. So it's like, I know that the food is there. I know danger is there. So as long as that's wired into my brain, I'll just keep going to where the food is and stay away from the dangers. And that will just be a pattern that we then repeat and repeat and repeat. And that allows us to conserve energy until it doesn't, right? And until a pattern like that isn't useful anymore. And often, most of us created most of these patterns and these habits in our youth. So if I learned be nice to people and appease people because then I'll get my needs met, that will be something that I'm just unconsciously doing as I grow up. And that can be nice and people might like me, but then I get into these codependent situations, or I get my sense of self from outside approval. And then all of a sudden, more and more, I'm like losing my sense of self because of the repetition compulsion. So knowing this, and we all have it, that's just how all of our brains are wired. Knowing this, we then know that certain patterns that we're doing aren't necessarily patterns that really, really serve us. They're just patterns that we're doing based on the repetition compulsion. And even, if I think of my world as I'm getting more into like activism and against the norm, I think of a family member who was me basically when he was in his 20s and 30s, but that repetition compulsion to just be against the norm has now continued. So now when he's 60, if the norm is like this more like, all his friends were hippies and artists and activists. So the norm, it has now become, against the power and equality and peace and love for all. Now he's against that because it's such an ingrained pattern to go against the norm. So, and again, which is why I'm so in love with the yoga practice, the meditation practice, boxing, singing, whatever the fuck you want to do, I don't care. But something that will break that pattern, that will create enough self-inquiry, enough silence and reflection time paired with, I truly believe that there has to be some sort of embodiment, because this mind-body organism is connected is one thing. And it's by moving the tension and actually feeling in the body where we'll start to discover, these patterns, this thought isn't actually true. This pattern isn't, or this behavior isn't actually what I want to do. It's just this old programming. So that's the first thing. And like, thank God we have amazing tools in our tool belt as people who've done yoga teachers, yoga training, or even therapy, so we have all these self-reflective tools. So then how does this work in doTERRA is that in my experience with the last 18 months, all the goals that I have with doTERRA are outside the box. Not all of them. Maybe like buying oils isn't that hard, even though that I met with resistance because it was expensive. Or using them, or even using them in a yoga class, like that sort of still inside this little box here. But then those outer goals, so however I want to use them, if it's like I want to empower marginalized people to make more money, or I want to eventually be able to go to, like, Tara Bliss is in Nepal right now, to see actually how everything is done, and you know, and become part of that community. Or if I want to develop a team in Sayulita or in Bali, like all of that is like far beyond. So if that is the goal, all of that, I'm just going to write these words: Bali, team, whatever, empowerment for all. I'm going based on what I think your guys' goals are. All of that is going to be like, they're pretty much scattered outside of this box. But then to get there, inevitably, we're going to have to pass through fear, doubt, resistance. Like, it's not like maybe we'll have to go through that. It's like, absolutely, there will be fear, there will be doubt, there will be resistance. And the more intellectual you are, the smarter that resistance will be, and the smarter the stories will be about why not to go for it. So I've witnessed that in myself, like, all the time, reasons to, like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't even want to really work with that person, or like just tons of stuff, just tons of reasons why I'm not ready, or this will suck, or, you know, those things. So how do we meet them when they come up, knowing that it will be inevitable? And what really, like, you know, I'm in such a state now of just like my personal growth, my personal offering to the world, and being, if I come down to like, what does it all come down to? Like, if all of this take away words of yoga or abundance or activism or like whatever I'm doing, it comes down to be able to love greater than I have ever been, that has ever been possible for me. Just love greater. Just like expand my tolerance, expand my capacity for kindness, to be able to hold space when someone is just pissing me off, and all I want to do is use my amazing communication skills to make them feel like shit and make them feel inferior intellectually because I'm so angry, right? So to be able to not bypass, have the tools to dispel all of that, and to be able to love greater and have more of an impact. And for me, doTERRA ties into that. So like, I've made that connection. And that, like, again, it's everything that we're already taught. Whenever I think I'm coming up with my own things, I'm like, oh yeah, this is all template. This is just my why. I'm just talking about my why. And if I feel myself that I'm sort of deviating, it's like, okay, I've forgotten my why, and come back to it. And whatever I need to come back to it, I'm very connected to it now, because I spent a whole weekend filling up. Last week, I was like burnt out and pissed off, and I wanted to just like give up teaching yoga. This is my pattern. Like, fuck, man, my pattern is so like, I'm just going to self-sabotage the moment I'm getting some bits of success. The moment these things are going well, I'm just going to self-sabotage, because if everything's going well and I have money and I have stability and I have good, healthy work relationships and friendships and everything, well, then I really have to do the work that scares me. But as long as I keep myself in some chaos, and I keep myself kind of poor, and I like keep myself in these kind of like toxic relationships, then at least I get to deal with the drama that I'm used to. And that isn't foreign, because my nervous system, and everybody's nervous system, doesn't want anything that's change or that's new. Even if it's a positive change. That's the crazy fucked up thing about our brains, is that even if it's a positive change, right? This is why people stay in abusive relationships, or stay in things like, I've never been in like a physically abusive relationship, but borderline emotionally. And like, I've done it, and I'm like a pretty empowered, feminist, educated, supported. I have a very good family, you know? So it's like, so sort of sneaky how that can happen. So the first part, I mean, it's like meditation. The first part is knowing that our brains are wired this way, that repetition compulsion exists, that, you know, without proper awareness, we'll probably just keep going into the same situations to re-trigger our trauma. And if we're not really taking care of ourselves, we'll just continue to re-traumatize ourselves until we have the awareness or the insight to be like, okay, I've gotten the lesson. I'm not going to go back into this. But that takes awareness, and it's not easy. Even doing yoga is often, you know, and meditating and journaling and with all the practice. So the awareness, and then something to actually change that, like a little neural tool. So like do the movement, however you can move your body before you're making a decision about something. That's my rule. It's keeping me going. The eating well, the connecting, and the tapping. So I did some tapping on change. So if you guys are into that, we can do some tapping. Are you okay to tap at your cafe? Would you feel weird doing that? Yeah. Okay. So maybe just listen, and I'll record this and you can watch it another time. Because just the affirmations on its own is pretty good. The tapping's like an extra bonus. So taking full responsibility for my own well-being. I know that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I am open to changing my habits. I'm open to changing my habits. Even though there's a part of me that's really afraid of change, even though there's a part of me that is really adverse to change, I'm open to changing my habits. And I completely love and accept myself. And I completely love and accept everyone else who taught me the habits that are no longer working. Because now I know that anything I want to change in the world starts with me changing my own life. And changing my own life starts with changing my actions. And changing my actions starts with changing my thoughts. So if I want to see change happen around me, it starts within. And I know that I'm going to come up with some really, really good reasons why I don't need to change. And I'm even going to love those parts of me that are going to talk me out of doing these things that will help me move towards my goals. Because I know that voice is just trying to keep me safe. And I probably learned that from someone who is just trying to keep me safe because they love me. So I'm not going to beat myself up for not making change. I'm not going to beat myself up for repeating patterns that don't serve me. I'm not going to beat myself up for procrastinating. I'm not going to beat myself up for avoiding. And I'm not going to beat myself up for resistance. I'm simply going to notice and start to get excited about the internal changes that I'm making. I'm going to get excited whenever I feel fear or resistance because I know that I'm meeting my edge. I'm going to get excited whenever I notice a deep desire to avoid or give up, because I know that that is just, again, some voice that I learned somewhere from someone trying to keep me safe, trying to keep me the same, trying to keep me in my compulsive repetition pattern. And I'm going to choose to connect with a part of me that really knows that the more that I shine in my life, the more that I make little decisions each day that take care of me, I am way more of an asset to people around me. The more that I continuously forgive, that I continuously embrace this crazy, insane, lovable person that I am, the more I can do the same for others. And the more that I embrace change, the more that I will see changes in my life. Because I know if I always do what I've always done, I'm just always going to get what I've always gotten. So excited to embrace change in body, mind, and soul. So take a deep inhale. And slowly exhale, let yourself sit for a few moments and just let that sink in. Preparing the nervous system for any changes. Embracing creative ways to move towards the deepest goals of my heart. Related to doTERRA or not, really. And you can slowly open your eyes. So any insights, or did that bring up anything for you guys? Yeah.
Oh, just seeing that Rebecca wrote something.
Oh yeah. Tapping is so powerful. I'm telling you, this guy, Brad Yates, he's lovely. He's very grounded and funny. He's the best I found. He has it for everything.
Yeah, he's got like a ton of videos, doesn't he?
I'm sure there are women. Oh, what's her name? Jessica Ortner. Her and her brother Nick were kind of the first to put tapping on the map. Like they kind of took it out of the like little groups of spiritual people doing it and kind of blew it up on the internet. So Jessica Ortner, yeah. No, it's spelled Ortner. I think it's with a T. They had something called the Tapping Summit, the Tapping World Summit. It's this thing they organize online. Just her and her brother, they like just did this in the last couple of years, and they just got like every tapping expert from around the world to do this world summit. It's so funny. Did the tapping process bring anything up that came up? So much tapping.
I always find that I want to yawn all the time when I do tapping, but I've been told that that's just a natural, like just letting go, like releasing the pent up energy. So I find I don't find tapping to be particularly energizing for me. Like I find it very draining, but in a good way. Like just like letting go of a lot of stuff that didn't need to be there, and it just takes time to heal from that.
Yeah, it could be a good thing just to do before like resting.
Yeah.
Down regulating. I find like when I'm in anxiety, it can be very wired. So I can kind of bring it back down. Cool, guys. Are there any specific questions? No? If you want, Rebecca, for the like self-care on your own versus in community, I mean, what came to mind is like, just make your things community oriented. And, you know, I know like it can take people a while to do a kind of classic class that ends with like, this is how you sign up for wholesale and retail. So if you're not quite there comfort wise or energetically, if ever, then it can just be an offering. Like if you genuinely love the oils and you genuinely love community, it can just be like, here's an offering of like things that we can do. These are ways that we can take care of ourselves. And yes, of course, yeah, oh my God. Yes, of course, like in community is the ideal, right? Like fuck, after spending a weekend in community, I spent like every second with Vanessa. We like roomed together. Like I'm like on such a high. I'm like, yes, community. And the reality is like, I live alone and sometimes my friends aren't available and like sometimes people aren't free and I can't see them. So in those moments when I can just grab an oil, it's fucking amazing just to have that.
Somebody that you may want to check out, Rebecca, is Jessie Reimers. I don't know if you're familiar with her or not, but she, yeah. I mean, I think especially to like working with like marginalized groups, like she's on the autism spectrum and she's like kick ass.
Yeah.
And just really, really breaks down classes really well. So she's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, she does a lot of activism around like the autistic spectrum and what is it, like awareness?
Yeah, and I mean she's autistic too, so she's just showing that like honestly like in a society where that could be a detriment to a lot of people, it's just how empowering, you know, working with the oils has been for her. And she's a presidential diamond. It's amazing.
Yeah, she's the youngest one in the world. I think she's like 24.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, or younger. And she's very no nonsense. She's very like, I don't know. She's a hard ass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, and also like I noticed in myself black and white thinking. Yeah. I know, I can see it. It's okay. And like, so I get that too, right? Like when I get into blocks with stuff, what I find is like, I notice I'm in black and white thinking. It's like, I'm just not going to do this. I do this with my Sun Life studio. Like, I'm just going to give it away. I'm just going to do this. But then I'm like, what Vanessa helps me a lot with is like, well, what is something that is like, if giving away my studio or just not doing doTERRA is like 0% and like doing it full on is 100%, like where's 10%? Like what is like, am I just a little bit more comfortable to do? Like for my Sun Life studio, it's like, okay, I'm going to go down to one class in the summer and like, and then all of a sudden, all that resistance of like doing all the things I needed to do, like reorganize the website and do a newsletter, it just happens. So I think like if the doTERRA equivalent is like, okay, I'm just going to say what I'm thinking, but could be thoughts like negative self-talk, and you can share whatever the voice says, but it's like, I don't want to like buy into this like corporate thing, and I don't want to be part of capitalism, or I don't want to have this take away from my other projects, or like, this is all stuff I've been through. Yeah, exactly. Or like, I can't do this authentically. I'm going to sound like a fraud. Like I'm not going to do it right. So if like diving in and doing it 100% feels really icky, then what is like 10%? Maybe it's just like whatever I did with you. When I have coffee with someone, I just like use peppermint, or I just giving gifts is so nice because it's hard to feel like embarrassed to give a gift. And it's hard to do it inauthentically. Like, how could you not do that authentically? So I found for me when I was really afraid or I just didn't, and like, look, the fear isn't necessarily of rejection. Like, I think the fear is not feeling like I'm living in integrity and like my messages aren't aligned, right? Or people are going to judge me. So it does come down to rejection a bit, but I found that just giving little gifts was like a great way to feel like, okay, I haven't abandoned this. I'm keeping some momentum. And I'm not doing anything that feels very like prickly to my nervous system. Like it feels like, and then from there, inevitably, because the oils are that amazing and they are transformational, out of like, you know, you give like things to 4 different people, I'm very sure, I mean, you can never guarantee, but at least one of them will come back and be like, those are so awesome. Thank you so much. How can I buy those? And then you don't have to worry about being inauthentic, because the next conversation is you're genuinely just helping them. And authentically, if someone is asking me for help with something, I'll just tell them how to do it. So it's like really that teasing it down, like breaking it down to like its smallest components and doing just one. And that's, it's like, I had this weird image when I used to be a runner. It was like, never just stop running, because it's so hard to like get that breath back, to get the movement back. Just like slow down your run. Even if like there were times I would be like shuffling, I'd look like a 90-year-old woman, like shuffling down the street, but I hadn't stopped running. Like I'd just been taking those little steps, and just that makes it easier. Does that help?
Yeah, it got a bit quieter in here. I think like two things, I guess, that I could say is like, while you were talking, I just realized that like why I like essential oils is because of like nature, like connection to like this really kind of like essence of nature. Mm-hmm. And like my practice of witchcraft is like really kind of fallen off the bandwagon or whatever. And so if I just reconnect to like my spirituality and nature and stuff, then that might help. Mm-hmm. And then, cause the sensitivity to like the power of these essences of plants is like goes away if you don't practice listening to it. Totally. And then the other thing is like there's stuff about the doTERRA website like that I've like talked to people about it, and I've showed them things. Mm-hmm. But like a lot of the marketing is like really kind of like marketing to women, mm-hmm. which is not necessarily a bad thing, but for someone who's like trans, like not feminine, like trans, whatever else, like it's kind of like, oh, okay, it doesn't feel inclusive. And so some of the marketing material, it's just difficult because it's like, I'm awesome. And like the oils are awesome, but then doTERRA has, I think, a long way to go in terms of like their language and their marketing and their, the way that they imagine their clients. That is not like, it's not terribly inclusive. Like there's not a lot of people of color on the website. Like it seems kind of tokenized, and so I guess there's also blocks for me in that, which I don't think is really as much a block as like kind of like just a way of like, okay, I know there's like a way of figuring out how I'm going to take what I can use out of doTERRA and I can transform doTERRA too. Like, I'm just one person, but I'm involved, I'm like, I can make suggestions to them.
I was going to say like write to whoever's in charge of that, call them incessantly.
Yeah.
I know you're doing enough activism to your list, but like
have Justin Trudeau on speed dial.
Yeah, exactly. Like one more thing, but maybe that could be something that like a big part of your team is like, let's do that. Or I would get behind that. Like I'm happy to make calls too, to be like,
that could be cool.
Yeah. To get them to change. And like, when I think about the impact of that, if there are right now more than 4 million wellness advocates, what's the impact of suddenly this company starting to change their, just change the type of people that they are speaking to or embracing or becoming more inclusive? Yeah.
Yeah, like I see so much potential in doTERRA, but it's not the potential of me getting people to sign up with oils. Like like it's more like I see the potential to like transform a corporate culture and like improve the inclusivity of a corporation. And like I also see the potential for like my people to make money. But I'm like all the normal things, I'm like, those aren't where I see the potential. So it's kind of weird. But I know that all those things there's still a participation in it.
Yeah,
right.
Like follow your bliss. Like if that's what's exciting right now, like if you're like, oh my God, like if this, if I could see a website with like a disabled person and a person of color and a trans person, like if that makes your heart flutter, like go towards that and like, and write to them about that and like make that your main project. Because if that happens, then how excited would you be to then like go towards the other things too?
I feel like in that way, like if I did that through doTERRA, like even just me personally as like a wellness advocate or whatever, I feel like I would get a following and people wanting to sign up for my team, like just because I'm like,
because you're
no, you guys, this has to be better, you know?
totally, because you're shining in your zone of genius. Like that, this is your the zone of genius. And that's why so much of it is like, they tell us, they're like 20% of your time should be spent with builders, like this kind of mentoring, but I don't feel it. Like I get so much out of this too. And 80% of your time is just doing your own thing. You don't need to be going out to look for builders, because just by you being so awesome, the people that want to work with you will find you. You know, like just by, I enrolled with Elena because I was at that period in my life, like I just loved Elena. I just wanted to work with her. But if I hadn't found her, and probably, to be honest, who I resonate with more, I probably would have ended up on Jessie Reamer's team, because I think she's so kick-ass. Because I would have been like, whoa, what is this woman doing? Like, I just want to be inside her brain, and I want any opportunity I have to connect with her. And the people that want to do that will be like, oh, well, if doTERRA, I totally use doTERRA as a vessel to connect with Elena. And then, woo, I discovered this whole world that I was like, wow, I like never thought I'd find all of this. And this is so amazing. So follow what feels exciting to you for sure. Yeah. I want it to change like that too.
Yeah, like, I hear what you're talking about, Rebecca. Like, that's so refreshing. Because, I tend to follow the people that, no, you know what, it's been really good to listen to what you're saying, because I feel like I get stuck in that, like, oh, just do what everybody else is doing because that's shown to work before, right? Mm-hmm. But you do, like, there are a lot of people out there that just don't resonate with that and want what you have to offer.
Totally. Like, and Tiff, you have your, like, as much as you're wanting to get out of the grief, psychology practice now, like, you have a lot of amazing knowledge and probably have like an understanding and emotional intelligence that most people don't have, and you can probably offer a lot of education.
Yeah.
You know, and say things that people need to know, and that there will be people out there who are, are experiencing grief or loss and being treated insensitively by their, community or families. And then all of a sudden they're going to see you and they're like, oh my God, like, I want to work with this one because she's going to get me. And she's going to, like, not say, everything happens for a reason, or like all these other horrible things that maybe have been making them experience pain in their lives.
Yeah.
It's really just like an amplifier to share what you're already passionate about. Like, that's really how I see it. It's just a way of, it's not only that, it is so much more, but that is one aspect of it. Because it just, like, it's just so cool how it turns into income. Like, it's just so crazy. It's so crazy. It's like ridiculous. I make $1,200 a month. It's like insane to me from really doing what I'm genuinely passionate about, and now seeing, like, my team start to make that too, and start to be like, oh, am I hitting upper limits, or like the personal growth? Like, it's this kind of like personal growth training, and the oils are so awesome, and it's this thing that connects us. Like, it's powerful. It's cool. It just needs to be done. It needs to be done in our own way. And just like the same thing, like the yoga conference, like, there's lots of teachers that I was just like, oh my God, like, oh, I just can't even listen to what you're saying, because it's so, like, right and wrong, and yay, and now your hamstring can stretch, and like all this crap. And I'm just like, oh, stop it. And then you have Sean Corn being like, we have to acknowledge our privilege, and we have to wake up, and let's, be aware of people in Pakistan and Syria and Libya. And there's this guy comes in a wheelchair, just like talking incessantly through the class. And she's like, I'm okay with this. So if this bothers any of you, like, not, you can leave, but I'm sorry, but I'm okay with this. So, and then, like, just beautiful, so resonant, but that's all within the whole yoga spectrum. Like, so within doTERRA, there's going to be all types too. So it's about, like, finding your niche. And if it's not there, create it. It's like anything in life. Like, be resourceful. It's what Elena kept saying to me. I was more in this, like, mode of like, I was a little complainy at the beginning and like criticizing doTERRA, like, oh, well, this isn't happening well. And she's like, just do it yourself. Like, be resilient or be resourceful. Mm-hmm. You call them, you be resourceful. You be the one to change that. Like, keep calling and emailing until you can get to like, is it Emily Haynes? No, that's not. Okay, I was like, Emily Haynes, lead center of Metric. It's not Emily Haynes. It's Emily Wright. Yeah. To do things differently or do things better. And I've said, like, can you find a better way to source Hawaiian sandalwood? And they said, we're working on it. I say, okay, I won't use it until then. And let me know when you're going to have a better sourcing method. Because they'll listen. They're pretty like, companies have to, at a certain point, there's pressure on them. And doTERRA, like I from what I see, like they are doing what they can to listen to their shareholders, especially because like a multi-level marketing business, it's like the people have so much power in it. So they like, I find more so than a regular company have to listen, right? Because these people have such influence. So yeah, so let's be those leaders. Cool. All right, guys. Well, this was great. I wish you an awesome week. It's always so nourishing to connect. And if you have any specific questions, placement, booking stuff, text, email, I'm here. Cool. Okay, guys. Enjoy your Monday. I'm going to write to you, Rebecca, to find a time to meet up. Okay. Bye.